Okay, so in this video, we're going to put together the chrysanthemum or mum vase luminary, and we'll begin by working on the base of this project here, and that consists of these pieces here. So we're going to go ahead and begin by simply folding these two pieces at the score lines. And what we want to do is simply connect these two pieces. So I'm just going to put a little bit of glue on this triangular tab here and just position that right on top of the other one. And when it gets a grip, we can push these back down. I'm going to fold this over on itself and just make sure that I've got it properly aligned. Okay. There we go. And just push that down until it gets a good grip. And then we can go ahead and fold this over and get it glued on the other end here. So we're going to connect this tab to the other side to close this up. Okay. So there we go. And it's going to form this piece here. You just want to make sure that you get it nice and glued up to that little score mark there, and then go ahead and fold at the score lines to create your little six-sided shape. Okay, no, they didn't. Okay, so then you can go ahead and fold in your little score lines here, these tabs, and got three pieces that look similar, except one of them has the letter L cut into it, and that's our liner. And what we're going to do is get that glued into place first. That's going to help us form the shape of this piece. So I'm just going to put a little bit of glue on one of the tabs, and actually we want to lift these up so that we can slide this piece in. Okay, and that's just going to push out all the sides to give us a nice shape to this piece. Okay, there we go. And then we can kind of flip it over and put glue on the rest of these to get them into place. And it's okay if you go a little bonkers with the glue at this point, because this is just a liner and it's going to be covered up, so no one's going to see this. Okay, and we can flip it back over and just push down all the way around to help form the shape. Okay, so that's roughly what it should look like at this point. And then we can go ahead and close it up. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this side on first. Okay, so I'm going to start with just one tab. Make sure that I get glue in the center, and then work a little bit of glue out to the edge. Because when we take this piece and pop it on there, it is going to push out a little bit as far as the glue goes. Okay, so let's get that in place. Just make sure that you've got it nice and flush with the edge there. Okay, and then at this point, we will want to put glue on the rest of the sides, because it's going to be a little difficult to lift this thing up without undoing some of the gluing if we try to do one at a time. So we'll go ahead and just place glue on the rest of these. And again, just make sure that you kind of work it out to the edge as close as you can, just to kind of get a nice finished look. And the cool thing about this is, depending on which side you do better, you can decide which side is going to be on top. Okay, so, and actually one other thing you can do at this point to make sure that these tabs really get a hold when you push this down is lift them up and then push down, and they'll kind of grip better. Okay, and then just run your finger along the edge here, and you may need to kind of shimmy things into place a little bit to make it perfect, and that is indeed perfect. Okay, so that came out beautifully. All right, so now we've got the bottom here. I'm gonna do the same thing. Since this went together really well, I'm gonna call this my top, but again, it doesn't matter. Maybe I'll even do a better job on this side and decide that this will be my top. So it's up to you. You've got 2 opportunities to get it as perfect as possible and decide which piece you want to be on top. Okay, just make sure that if you're using AC cardstock that you get your texture side up. Okay, and just place that down. Get it nice and centered, nice and aligned. If you're using the Scotch tacky glue, it does give you a little bit of time to wiggle things around if you don't get it placed in the correct place. And then also, if you do get a little bit that seeps out, I tend to just kind of rub it off. Okay, so that piece came out beautiful. And what we're gonna do next is create this little reservoir, or whatever you wanna call it. And what that's for is so that when you place your vase on there, it stays in place. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna take these 2 pieces here and glue them side to side. And actually, let's go ahead and bend this tab here. And then we're gonna put a little bit of glue. And actually, something to consider here, the texture side here is out, okay? So it's gonna be sitting like this. You wanna make sure that you're gluing it accordingly. You wanna make sure that you get the texture side out. Just looks prettier, I think, and more consistent. Okay, so I'm just gonna pop that right on there. Okay, and let it get its initial hold. Just line that up as best as you can initially, and there you go. Just kind of rubbing that glue off. And then I'm gonna go ahead and bend it in half and kind of shimmy it a little bit just to make sure that I've got it perfectly centered and aligned properly at this seam here. Okay, and then we can go ahead and connect the other side. And I'm just kind of dabbing a little bit of glue on there, and I already know that I overdid it on this glue and it's going to smear, so I'm just going to take a little bit off before I make a mess. Okay, so there's that. All right, and again, you can kind of fold it at that seam and just make sure that it lies flat. That way you know that you've got it perfectly aligned. Okay, so there's this piece. And just go ahead and go around and make sure that you've got everything folded. I'm going to fold these tabs down now. Okay, and all we're going to do at this point is take this piece and glue it inside here to create this shape. Okay, so take that out and just be kind of gentle with the glue so you don't get it too close to the side. All we really want to do is make sure that we get it on the tabs, but not too far towards the actual wall. That's perfect. And then we can just go ahead and shove that in. Okay. There we go. Perfect. Okay. All right, so we have this piece, and we're just going to simply put glue on the bottom of it. Okay. And get some glue out to the edge. Oh, need a little bit more there. Perfect. And then all we're doing is we're taking this and doing our best to just center it on this piece. Okay, we didn't include score lines because I think everyone can pretty much eyeball where the center of that is. Okay, and let that dry. And then we have I'm showing these in red. For our final one, we did that in a gold foil. But what you're gonna do is you're gonna glue this little strip. What you're gonna do is glue this little strip onto the base, and there's 2 of them. So just get that glued on like so, and then repeat the same process with the other one. Okay, so there's your base. The base is all done, and we can go ahead and begin working on the actual structure of our vase or our vase. Okay, and what I did when I put together the final one that you see on our website is I began by gluing the panels on. Okay, so you've got 6 of these, and you want to get those glued on. Now there are some fine details on this piece. Okay, so just make sure that you're not squeezing too much glue out and you're getting it in the right spots. Okay, and then what I did with this glue bottle is, you know, in the larger areas it's fine to get a lot more, but in these fine little detail areas which you do want to cover, I would just put little dots. Okay, just get the right pressure going and just add little tiny little dots, and that's really all it needs to really stick. Okay, and we're putting these on first so we don't smear up the vellum that we need to put on there. So, you know, just get that nice and lined up, kind of using the little flower on the corner as my initial guide, and then just gluing it down. Okay, you can ink this if you want. We didn't really do any inking to ours at all, and it still came out really beautiful, but I'm sure that some of you are probably going to ink this thing and do a lot more creative stuff to it. Okay, so you're going to repeat that process 6 times because there are 6 sides to this piece. Okay, and then there's also a bottom. Okay, and you also need to glue that into place 6 times. Okay, so you're going to go ahead and do that. All right, and you'll have all your panels on, and then you're going to flip it over and you're going to work on putting your vellum in place. Okay, and the process is going to be kind of the same, and I found that just using little dots all around it worked best for me. I didn't want to put too much on there and risk it smearing over the design, so I just kind of dotted around the design, adding dots in little spots. All of a sudden I'm Dr. Seuss here, and just get that glued into place. Just make sure that you keep the vellum within the score lines so that when you go to fold this thing, you're not obstructing its ability to fold. Okay, so there's what that should look like. And again, with this, the bottom part's a lot easier because there's not a lot of fine detail. So I'm just kind of dotting around it, and then I'll throw a couple of tiny little dots on these actual tiny little strips. And if you have a precision tip glue bottle, that works. But even with this, even with the fat head on this thing, I was able to control it well enough to do this pretty flawlessly. Okay, so that's what that should look like. And you're going to repeat that for all the panels until you have them all done. Okay, and then at that point, once you have that complete, you can go ahead and fold at the score lines. I want to make sure that, it's one thing I always talk about, is just ensuring that you get everything nice and folded and ready for assembly. It's just, it helps everything kind of fall into place and align more perfectly if you do the folding beforehand. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that all the way around and just get everything nice and prepared to get into its final position here. Okay, and I really think the design on this is just amazing, and it's just beautiful. It's a stunning little piece. I'm definitely going to leave this out for Thanksgiving, and then a little bit before Halloween, and then definitely after I take my Halloween decorations down, I will be leaving this thing out. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna join the top part together. Okay, so we're gonna join these 2 large pieces together. So I'm gonna accomplish that by placing glue on this tab here, okay, and just connecting it to its partner, to its neighbor, right there, okay. Now just make sure that you got that nice and aligned, and get rid of any excess glue that may have seeped through by just kind of rubbing it off. Okay, so that is that. All right, and what we want to do next is join these little bottom pieces together. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just grab this tab here and place glue on it. Don't get too wild with the glue. Okay, and I must have not bent these. I'm bending them now, and just join them together at the correct angle. There you go, just like so. There we go. And of course, again, you're going to have all your panels and vellum on. Look how beautiful that is. And we're just going to continue down the road here, repeating that same process until we get all these tabs glued into place. Now the tab's got a little notch cut out of it so as to not obstruct the light that's going to be coming out from inside our vase. And there we go. You may want to take your time a little more and let things dry. I know that when I put together the demo version that you see on our website, probably spent a little bit more time on every little thing, but I don't want to bore you. It's kind of like watching, the old saying, watching paint dry. Don't want to do that to you. Just want to kind of get you to where you need to go, and that's all you really need. Just be patient and have fun with it. I actually was sitting in the studio with Diana while she was putting together the actual product itself for the website, and you know, it's a very meditative thing. It's fun. You just put some music on and zone out, because there's not a lot of thinking involved with you know, with doing this, and it really is kind of, it does take your mind off things. You just kind of get in the zone. It's the closest thing to playing guitar for me, is paper crafting. It's just kind of fun, you know, and there's almost an instant gratification to it, because it doesn't take that long to put this stuff together. So I'm going to go ahead and join this at the seam here to get the other end connected. Okay, and just make sure that you're doing it at the correct angle. Okay, there we go, and you can, once it gets its initial grip, you can kind of put it down on your table to apply pressure, and then that way you don't bend it either. Okay, got a little glue that seeped out there, so I'm just going to rub that off. And that looks nice. And then we've got one more seam here to glue. Really using the little dot method for the glue. I find that gives me a little bit more control than putting lines all over the place. Okay, so there is the vase. All right, and at this point, we're going to take one of these two pieces here. They're both the same size, so it doesn't matter which one you grab. And we're going to close this up, and that's going to sturdy this thing up too. This will be hidden, so it doesn't have to be perfect. If you make a mistake, it's not a big deal. I'm going to pop these tabs out, so as I take this piece and push it down, I get a better grip. Okay, and do your best at this point to get everything aligned. You might have to kind of shimmy things around a little bit. There we go. Yeah, the Scotch tacky glue is really nice because, again, it's forgiving. It gives you a little extra time to get it just right. Okay, so there it is, okay, and it's gonna sit perfectly on its little base. And at this point, we can go ahead and begin working on our little flower. And that is made up of, ooh, I had a little splodge of glue here. Okay, that is made up of these pieces here. I'm gonna show you how these all work. The first thing we wanna do is put together the little cup, okay, and that's made up of this piece here. So we're just gonna fold this at the score lines, okay, and I'm gonna get that glued to itself by putting glue on this tab here and getting that into position. There we go. I'm gonna fold that over, and that's gonna help me make sure that I've got it nice and aligned perfectly. There we go. Okay, and then I can fold these tabs in. And at this point, it doesn't really matter if you put this inside or outside, because you're gonna be gluing this onto the top of this anyway. So just to make it easier on me, I'm just gonna pop it in here. Just gonna put a couple dabs of glue inside this piece here and just pop that right into place. Here we go. And this is just a little cup that is going to be the foundation for the chrysanthemum, excuse me. Okay. All right, so what you want to do at this point is grab, these two pieces are going to go on the actual candle, so you can put that to the side. There are 3 pieces for the actual flower, and if you just look at them, you can tell which one's the biggest. This one has the biggest petals. This is going to be on the outside, and then this piece goes in next, and then the smaller piece goes in, so it's kind of in this order. Okay, so we're going to take our biggest piece here, and as you can see in our final here, we did take and train all of these petals to kind of give them a little bit of dimension and life. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to glue this to itself before we do anything else. So we're just going to put a little bit of glue on that tab and join it to its neighbor. Okay. If you get a little bit of glue that shoots out here, that's okay, because it's going to be hidden by this little cup that we made. Okay. So just hold that into place. You can kind of fold it just to make sure that you've got it nice and properly aligned. And what I did was, with this one here, you're kind of grabbing by right near the score line here and just taking and training these petals. And actually, these outermost ones, you really want them to kind of bend pretty heavily, I guess you could say. And I think it's best if you work this way. Okay, so I'm just going to go around and train these petals. Now you can ink these if you want. Because of the way that we separated these pieces, we didn't actually ink anything, because the tones of the colors that we selected for the paper kind of give the flower like a natural gradient sort of look. So we didn't even do any inking to get that final result. So you're just going to do that all the way around, okay? And what you can do then is fold these tabs in, okay? And we're just going to sandwich that inside of this little cup, okay? So that's our first layer. So let me go ahead and just glue that into place. Just going to put a couple dots on here. Doesn't need to be perfect. Just pop it right in there, and just push down on the tabs, and just let that get a hold. Okay. Just like so. And of course, again, yours are going to be trained with the nice curves. And I've been talking to Ron, our art director, about he's actually like a flower master. And you know, you can actually, the more random you are with the petals as far as the training, the more real it's gonna look. Okay, so don't be afraid to kind of bend a few like that, and bend some of the other tips a little. You know, the more variety you give them, the more real they look. Okay, so that's how that layer goes. And then you're gonna get the second largest layer, and you're gonna repeat the same process. And as you work your way in, you kind of want the petals to stand up a little bit taller. Okay, so as you can see here, these really kind of point down, these point down less, these point down even less, and then these are almost erect and just kind of curved and trained more at the tips. Okay, now again, you can just play with it until it looks how you want it to look. But if you do want it to look how we did it, it sounds weird. If you want it to look, if you want to reproduce it and make it similar to ours, then just follow those little tips that I gave you about training your petals. So again, same thing with this. You're gonna go around and you wanna make sure that you grab it by the score line here so you don't rip it. And this one, it doesn't need to, you don't need to train it as intensely, because you do want it to stand up a little bit more than the previous layer. So you're gonna go around and do that. And then again, we're gonna put glue on these tabs and just get that glued into place. And pretty much like that. And as you can see here, how the leaves look. The petals, I should say, okay? And we're gonna go to the next layer here. And actually, one other thing too that I failed to mention is, depending on the style or the look that you want, if you want your petals to have texture, then you're going to fold this and glue it accordingly. So for example, because the petals go out this way, if you want the texture showing, then you want to make sure that you glue this with the texture side in instead of the texture side out. Okay, so that is completely a decision that you can make as far as how you want yours to look. Okay, but I'm just going to go ahead and glue this to itself, like so. Just give that a second to hold, and then you can fold it in on itself to make sure that you've got it aligned properly, like so. And again, I'm just going to take these leaves and just train them out. And again, with this inner layer here, I'm more or less beginning the training kind of halfway up, okay? And that's how that's gonna look. So again, we're gonna fold these tabs in and pop some glue on them and get them glued into place. And again, you guys can go crazy with the inking, whatever you wanna do to really bring this thing to life. So just get that in place, push down. And if you don't get the petals trained correctly, after you get everything together, it's not too late to train them even more and shape them how you want to shape them. Okay, so, all right, so once you get these three layers together, we've got this little piece here. We're gonna put glue on these tabs, and we're gonna close this up just to finish it off nicely, because the next piece is somewhat independent of the rest of the flower. Okay, and it's made up of these two pieces here. And we're gonna start with the smaller ones. Okay, we're gonna take our candle, and I actually still have the plastic on mine here, so I'm gonna remove that. And I have a link to the specific candles that we used on the supply list section of this product. These are really cool. They glow, like the body glows and the top glows. It's just a really cool light. And what you're going to do is you're simply going to take, you want to start with this side here, okay, and just kind of align it at the bottom of your candle and just wrap it around, okay. And with this one, it doesn't matter if you put the tab inside or outside because it's our inner layer. No one's going to see it. So we'll go ahead and put a little bit of glue on this little tab here and just glue that down. Make sure that you get it nice and aligned. Okay, made a little bit of a mess, but again, it's okay because we've got one more layer to place on here. There we go. And while you have it like this, you can go ahead and just kind of hold at the bottom here so you don't rip these pieces. And you can actually take it, and if you have a little dowel, you might want to get some different sized dowels. Ron recommended that you get some different sized dowels to kind of help train these, okay? So you're going to train all of these as well. I'm just going to pop these out. And then you're going to take your larger piece here, okay? And we're going to do the same thing. And what I'm going to do actually this time is I'm going to put glue on this tab here and just get that glued into place. Again, just make sure that you've got it nice and aligned with the bottom there and hold that down while it dries. Make sure that it's nice and aligned with the base of your candle. Okay, just hold that down while it dries. And then you're going to take and just wrap it. Make sure it's nice and tight. Wrap it around and just glue it to the other side. So we're going to put a little bit of glue here and just push and hold that down. Got a little bit too much glue on there. Just hold that down while it dries. Okay, and there's that piece. And again, you're just going to take and train these petals to your heart's content and shape it to look like a chrysanthemum. Okay, so just kind of to give you an idea of how that works, I'm going to push these out. You do want the candle to be a little more visible than how I have it here, but you don't actually glue this in because eventually the battery in this thing's going to run out, and we don't want you to make that permanent. So this piece is kind of going to go in there. Let me show you how that works. So you see how that works there. Okay. And finally, we can take this and put a little bit of glue on the base and on the surrounding tabs and just glue it right to the top of this thing. Okay, just add a little bit of pressure and just give it time to set, and you are all done with your mum vase.
Stay on top of all things Dreaming Tree and engage with us today. Get the latest news and enter in our giveaways on Facebook. Get inspired by following us on Pinterest. Be the first to see our new product launches on Instagram. Do you prefer Twitter? Yep, we're there too. Watch our beautiful product trailers and assembly tutorials on YouTube. For more information, visit www.3dsvg.com. Live, craft, love, and dream.